So let me see. Yeah. So to talk about what the presentation, I'm going to start talking about participatory approaches literature. Some of you might be confused about this terminology because usually we know as participatory methodologies, participatory methods, or action research, which is the more well-known terminology. However, because of this diversity, and I think the participatory term is what makes them different, is why I call it under the category of participatory approaches. So I will start talking about this literature and trying to clarify some of the main families, but also came across what is the main argumentative line nowadays in this extended family. And the second part, let me see. I don't know what, yeah. I'm going to try to see how these ideas coming from participatory approaches in the literature can or not be linked to the capability approach. So I'm going to explore how this, different features or different ideas, connect with the capability approach, and whether, we have the space to present this participatory methodology. The third part, I'm going to talk about what have been done in the area of the capabilities approach with participatory approaches. I'm going to talk about the work that different scholars have done in these two fields together. And I will finish with the presentation of democratic capabilities research as a methodological proposal. So to talk about participatory approaches, of course, I think the most well-known category is the industrial family, which is coming from the category of action research, and that probably most of you know Kerr-Lewin. So this typology is kind of influenced about this positivist understanding of research. So you will see how Kerr-Lewin, was actually trying to look for a way to understand social change and produce it through cycles of reflection and action. However, this was the initial idea of action research, and nowadays is a little bit more difficult because actually it's in a way combined with the second family, the development one. With the development family, I'm referring to typologies as participatory action research, participatory research, or community-based participatory action research, for say some of them. But the family is definitely, bigger than those three categories. This family is a little bit later, it's in the 1960s, and we found that actually it comes from the global south. So people as Fals Borda from Colombia, or Tandon in India, or Marcia in Tanzania, are the ones, among the most well-known people in this category. However, this category is more based not in of course, is the social change, but it's more focused on liberation ideas, which come from this philosophies of the oppressed and the need for liberation. So the next category, I call it decolonial, but if you want, we can discuss later whether they should come together or not. The reason why I separate them is because the decolonial family is a little bit more radical and is based on decolonization ideas specifically. So while the development is a bit open and this liberation leaves space for a lot of different practices, the decolonial is a little bit more radical and refers to mostly indigenous research or African research, kind of. And the last family is the educational one, which in my opinion with this industrial is the most conservative within the whole participatory approaches field. And this one is mostly for primary and secondary education, although we can also find some practices in higher education, even some typologies within that. I'm referring here to classroom action research, pedagogical action research, action learning, or participatory action learning, action research, this kind of typologies, which can be easily linked to the educational strand of participatory approaches. So what I was trying with this is to understand the foundational difference among the different families of participatory approaches. However, as I said, nowadays the practices got a really strong influence by this development and decolonial ideas. To solve about this, here are one of the 4 of the 5 handbooks that we have in action research literature, which has been produced in the last 16 years, which is quite recent for the history of action research. So the first one, which is the International Palgrave International Handbook of Action Research, which is the latest compilation from the action research family, said to us that we believe action research has a crucial role to play in the work of creating an alternative globalization that counters the standard view being propagated by those whose interests lie in maintaining the status quo of colonial domination, largely by the global north, at the expenses of the peoples, cultures, resources, and epistemologies of the global south. So as we see, all this action research, which initially was a little more connected with, if we want to say, with the colonial understanding of research, suddenly is paying attention to these tensions and these urgent issues of knowledge democracy, epistemic justice. So the second example is the Sage Handbook of Action Research, which is the 2008 edition. And it talks about the same thing. Most of us educated within the Western paradigm is talking about this Cartesian, division, worldview that has been imposed, through the Western paradigm to the rest of the world. And the next one, which is the same book, but the 2015, that is the latest version of the book, it talks the same about post-Cartesian, the Cartesian catastrophe that we need to embrace and understand to go beyond, and start practicing research in other kind of ways. And in the educational action research, in this area, we will find about, promotion of decolonization in more radical typologies of educational action research, as it is the critical participatory action research from Chemist, Target, and Nixon. So as you see, there is a common idea that is going across the different families. And I think nowadays it's difficult to read something about participatory approaches without crossing around ecologies of knowledge, alternative globalization, democratization of knowledge, and so forth. So the idea was like, okay, we have this main, based within participatory approaches. How this talk to the capability approach? Are they compatible? Can we align them together? So it's actually interesting because what I found is like they have a lot of similarities. So for instance, the capability approach is an incomplete theory. So as an incomplete theory, it leaves an open space to accommodate different ontological positions, but equally is able to accommodate diverse epistemic systems. The participatory decolonial ideas is saying, well, we need to run away from universalist formulas, because in a postmodernist or post-truth time, what we need actually is partial theories. We need translation theories, that can accommodate different cultural features. So actually, they are claiming for this theoretical space, which is flexible and incomplete to accommodate that. The capability approach talk about positional objectivities. With this, what we mean is like for an informed choice, what we need is like individuals who represent a particular positionality and being able to come together to have an informed choice. But equally, in the other hand, we have, well, they are talking about subjectivities of intersubjectivities. Well, what they mean is actually exactly the same, like the capability approach. Although the terminology is different because of the ideology behind those two strands, subjectivities refer because, you know, they cannot believe in the objectivity which has been promoted with the Cartesian catastrophe, but they are able to understand that what we need is positions, you know, that are related to other and connected to other, as the capability approach talks with the positional objectivity. And then about the anthropocentric, position, for sure, you know, we know that we're talking about moral individualism, but what I'm interested in is that the capability approach offers a flexible space enough to reconsider humans as the only capability deserving entity. So this is an example of what is going on now in the literature to expand capabilities to animals, but here the potential is like not only animals, but if a certain community have reason to value to provide capabilities to a river or mountain or whatever, the approach is actually flexible enough to offer that incomplete theoretical space. So although the individual is still the one who takes the decision, we are not the only capability to serve, and we can extend it according to the different commonalities or amount of the different positionalities that is related to the culture that we are linked to. So about the democracy idea, Sen is really clear. We need to go beyond the institutionalized democracy. We need to consider democracy in a broad sense that is actually not a Western creation, but is actually a compendium of things that are among different cultures. So the participatory decolonial says something similar in the sense that, well, you know, we have to go beyond the institutionalized democracy to understand participation, you know, as central to the process of democracy. So, of course, you know, the capability approach considers development as the expansion of freedoms, but actually the decolonial participatory is trying to transform a universe into a pluriverse. So basically what they are telling is like what we need is from the hegemonic system, which, you know, has unified everything into one form of culture and knowledge. We need to provide the space for different forms of living to be able to, you know, to be together with the monoculture, because it's not a question of removing or not using the Western knowledge, but it's a way to have the space to accommodate different cultures and different individuals with different reasons, you know, to live a different life from the monoculture or from the imperial project. So what they said to do so, the decolonial is telling us that we need to use the atopic hermeneutic, which is a terminology from de Sousa Santos, to try to talk about the cultural translation. We need to look for isomorphic elements among different cultures across this incomplete theoretical space, right? So what I said is like, well, actually capabilities can be the perfect unity, you know, to act among different cultures, to understand and look for these isomorphic elements. So to conclude, the capability approach not only offers a development idea, but also a justice idea, you know, in the sense that what we're trying is removing the freedoms that leave people with few choices to live different lives. But actually, the decolonial and the participatory is talking about the same thing. It's like, well, what we need is to remove the hegemonic system that doesn't allow people, you know, to live in another way and to use other knowledge systems. So after seeing this, what we have done so far within the capabilities field, you know, about this has been, we have been working, you know, combining these two fields, and we have quite a few literature about combining them. So what we will find here is two different ways of applying participatory approaches into capabilities research. In one side, we will have the mixed method, okay? So we will use conventional methods, and we will introduce participatory methods within and create a project which give a little bit of everything, which is the most common way of doing it. And then we will have the more alternative one, which apply different methodologies in different areas, but especially within development studies. So the problem here is that we will find people using action research. We will see people talking about participatory action research, or other people talking about photo voice or participatory video. But actually, despite all the new terminologies that has been produced in the last year within participatory approaches with different theoretical frames, we have not yet agreed on a participatory capability-based methodology, when actually the capability approach is a perfect frame to connect with all these debates and produce something that can enrich the field of participatory approaches. So that's why, you know, I propose this democratic capabilities research in a way that we can start working or using the capability approach beyond an evaluative frame for participatory methods, because sometimes scholars use it as an evaluative frame, like, okay, let's see, you know, if the process has expanded or not, but the capability approach has a substantial potential, you know, not only to work as an evaluative, but also to work as a perspective, you know, how a capability design methodology looks like, you know, how participation is conceptualized through capabilities. So here I'm going to show some of the main principles of DCR so far. So the first one will be that injustice needs to be the initial issue, what brings people together to have a motivation to research together about certain thing. This is also well reflected in the literature on decolonial issues and how, you know, we should come together, you know, to resolve those problems. The second principle is about the uncertain horizon, which facilitate in a way the democratic space in a broad way. What I mean with this is, like, if we don't offer the open spaces that individuals need to lead a research process in their own terms, we can actually limit the potential of participatory approaches. So here with this, what I mean is, like, the process needs to be agreed, and the decision making needs to be constant during the process to create something that maybe we never thought about it, because if we keep having really rigid frames to develop or participatory methodologies, we are not allowing innovation, we are not allowing other ways of creating knowledge. Of course, it has to have internal and or external diversity in the sense of ecologies of knowledge. So DCR might be open enough to accommodate different knowledge systems, which is aligned with the removal of imperial frames. And this needs to be currents in the process, but currents also with emotions and life, because the research process is not detached from our professional practice. Here, you know, I will open this for discussion later on, because of course, you know, this year for me at the beginning was really focused on the voiceless, the collectives or the individuals that do not have access to knowledge creation. They do create knowledge in their own frames, but not to the academic, well-established knowledge creation. So the point is whether we want to focus on them and create an external diversity of knowledges, bringing other collectives into the group and working with them, or whether we want to go for a more the Sousa Santos idea, which is to bring the voiceless with academics, with social movements, with artists together to work through the whole research process together. So we can give me your opinion about that later. And then for sure, you know, DCR needs to be a process which is take care of the capabilities of the individuals that are participating and use the process to expand them. Of course, imperfectly, because we are talking about real practices, but how, you know, we can explore the capabilities that are important and guide the process, you know, to achieve those important capabilities for the participants. So then what we have at the end is like kind of two different processes. A first one, which is a capability analysis by the facilitator. So that will mean that from the very beginning of the project, before the group is working together, the facilitator will need to analyze critically the available capabilities of the participants, and use that through the process to help him or her to understand what is important for the members, you know, to achieve during this research process. But not only that, it has also the responsibility of creating this space for knowledge, democracy, and ecologies of knowledge. So it needs to, if the process naturally is not taking the way of ecologies of knowledge, is focusing only in one epistemic system, then the facilitator should be able to introduce others to create imperfectly, for sure, you know, this space of diverse knowledges. And then what we have is the second process, which is the group research process. So this is actually the real DCR process in a way, because it's where the group come together and they decide whatever is important for them because it's agency center. And then from there, they construct the process of research together in the way they think is adequate for their community, for their space and the time where they are there. So I know I haven't explained much about the case study that I've been busy with here in South Africa, but if you have any questions or want to open a debate about one of the elements I've been presenting, I will be really glad to hear suggestions and questions. Thank you.
Okay, Carmen, thank you very much. I think we can leave the floor to any question. Otherwise, if you want to tell us something more about your case studies in South Africa, I think that may be, or at least may be very interesting for me. But let's see if anyone wants to raise a question. Yeah. You can either write it down on the chat or to just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay. If you have any question in Spanish, we'll be fine, because I saw there's a lot of Spanish people around, but
I think Sandra, right?
Yes. Hi, Carmen. How are you? ¿Cómo estás?
I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
Okay. Thanks for your presentation. I have a question with regard to the I mean, when you start a participatory process, no, based on capabilities, no, and inspired, no, also by these decolonial approaches, are you expecting particular capabilities to be developed through the process? So not only the group respect and what is going to happen, but because in my experience, there are some capabilities that always appear developed after a process, a participatory process informed by democracy, injustice, all the characteristics you pointed in your presentation. So have you thought about it, or do you have some results and some thoughts about your experience? Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I go ahead with this question?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. When I finish with this, I will talk about my case study. So I also answer your question. Thank you so much, both of you, for the questions. About Sandra, I think it's a really good question. Because what I'm trying to do, I think in a way, we can kind of guess, which capabilities they are gonna think they're important, and more because, we've been researching within the capabilities approach for a while. So we know more or less which kind of capabilities can be generic or can be more extended, important for the individuals. But what I'm trying to say is like the capability approach provides a perfect incomplete space to expect something new. You know what I mean? In the sense that if we run really fast for this or that capability, we're missing the space to get another answer. My question also, or what made me think about it, is also that as academics, probably our contexts are kind of similar, in the sense that if we've been having the same capabilities all the time, can be also because we tend to locate ourselves in certain kind of spaces. So I think for me, it's like to leave the space to find about new capabilities, and not only new capabilities, but different ways to understand the capabilities that we already have. As for instance, the list from Nussbaum is the important space that a practice like DCR can provide to the capability debate. How, if you see, we have tend to go for the universal, easy choices with the capabilities. We have tend to go really quick to have organized lists for different contexts and different spaces, but we haven't yet have a theoretical space that was incomplete and locally. I'm not telling that we should make all the practice locally, but what I'm telling is like, well, maybe we're missing the local space of the capability approach to give us, new spaces to think or to give actually the individual the opportunity to determine their own capabilities. Because linking this with my case study, what I thought it was that the participants in my project needed to understand what I was doing, and they needed to understand what a capability means, and needed to discuss with me what a functioning is. So across my case study, I had different meetings with every one of the group, every one of the team, and I've been discussing with them, not only in the sense, because I think maybe, to be so separate in the sense of me as a researcher exploring the capabilities of them, but not engaging with them in conversation about their own valuable capabilities, was actually missing part of this democratic capabilities research. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but I hope so. Otherwise, you can go again and I will try again. About the case study, I've been working with 12 undergraduate students from the University of the Free State here in South Africa. Initially, the project wanted to take students from the university which were not yet in contact with knowledge creation, because here in South Africa you will start to have contact with research from your honors degree, which is a postgraduate level. So I selected 12 undergraduate students from different faculties. So some of them were from natural science, from law, from politics. So they were actually having a really different background. And then we've been meeting once a month during last year. And we had 9 workshops in 1 year. And of course, on top of that, we had informal meetings that were not counted as the workshop. So the idea is like, yeah, funny enough, some people said like, well, but if we leave the student decide whatever they want to research, they're going to come up with a stupid idea or with a not too interesting for us idea, you know, to research. But yeah, funny enough, my group wanted to research about racism, which is a big thing in South Africa, about gender and about social inequalities. So because the group was quite big, we divided the big group into 3 smalls. So we had every group dedicated to one of the topics they wanted to research. And then through there, the process was being developed together. So we will take decisions all the time together. For sure, I was the academic counterpart. So if they wanted to know something about academic research or academic sources, something like that, they were asking me. Otherwise, they were, you know, taking decisions of whether, you know, they should invite, you know, someone to come to the group and talk about the issues we were exploring. Like, for instance, you know, one of the times we had a local, is an association within campus, which is called Embrace a Sister, and that is worried about gender, race issues in general. So they've been working for years, you know, trying to create awareness about this on campus, especially because there is a big problematic about rape culture and harassment. So they came to the group to talk about, you know, the problems, how they resolve the issues on campus and things like that. But I think the main point was that the process was developed by communal or decision making all the time, you know, together of, okay, what we want next, what is the aim of the project and how we are going to achieve it through the process. So yeah, so I'm not sure if I answered it. Yeah, that's it.
I have one question. This is Melisse. Hi, Carmen.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Fine. So you would pretty much guess what I'm going to ask about decolonization. That's one of the things that I've been recently working on in one of our South African projects here in the UK. So, I mean, decolonization is such a fraught field. So, I mean, I've been to many conferences here in Cambridge, in Oxford, and London, you know, like where the white people are to leave the room and so on. So you know what I mean. So I just want to, you know, like see how do you create a space for decolonization in capabilities approach. I mean, if you could just like expand a bit more how you bring decolonization capabilities, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, maybe as academics, sometimes we're a little bit simplistic and we think, yeah, decolonization is this. Yeah, but actually there is a lot of discourses on decolonization. You know, they are not all the same. And when I'm talking about decolonization, I'm talking a really a specific argument line, which is this pluriverse, which is sustained mostly from the South American school. I think that kind of decolonization, because you will find some radical perspectives, you know, like, you know, decolonization cannot come from the north or, you know, things like that. But actually this school is quite soft in that way. what they say is like, no, actually we need to give value to all the academic knowledge we have developed for centuries. What we need to understand is the superiority that history has given to that, and also try to put them together with other knowledge systems, and also provide the space to create different societies, to allow them to live. Because unfortunately, with the power of the economic system, it doesn't allow for the rise or the flourishment of different cultures that are not in contact with this economic system of competition. So I think the capability approach from a really open perspective, which I'm taking here for sure Amartya Sen perspective, even going a little bit beyond what Amartya said, will say about the capability approach. It has a really, I don't know how to explain, but you will find, how the capability approach talk about, the individuals that have different reasons, different reasons to value different lives and different things. So how that cannot be allowed with this or aligned with this pluriversal project, when actually this decolonization project is telling us what we need is to provide the spaces, to have different cultures to flourish beyond the imperial system. So I think, from the decolonial part, the capability approach has been criticized for being too individualistic. But however, what I found in the literature is like, even this school is telling you that, yes, groups are important. We need to take into account the groups, but actually we have individuals which has intersections among different groups, like can be a Black female, or a Black lesbian female that we know also in research in intersectionality, intersection of different features. So the decolonization, this school is telling like, yeah, actually we need to pay attention to the individuals that compose the groups. So for me, it's like, okay, the only thing that I could criticize from a decolonial perspective from the capability approach is even okay in this perspective of decolonization. And decolonization, therefore, through a capability lens, so be to promote that diversity that the capability approach is able to embrace and to understand and promote as a way of understanding social justice. Yeah.
So if no one asking, I have one more question, if it's okay.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry. So that's quite interesting research. So, sorry, Adriana?
Yeah, go for it. Don't worry.
Okay, and thank you very much. So that's a really very interesting research. I mean, and currently I also taken sort of a participatory action research, like capabilities-based feminist participatory action research, with one of the as a part of the EU project that I've recently been awarded. So in that project, actually, we were just like working with students within the higher education university campus to create change and so on, and it was being carried within the like the context of Turkey. And in our project, we just like found that deliberation with others, the public deliberation especially, and came up as a really an important capability as a form of dissemination, knowledge, ideas, awareness, and the construction of gender norms. So, and especially within the current, like the crackdown in Turkey. So we saw that the public deliberation was sort of a very important a capability that kind of dominated whole action research. And it's really also fostered exchange of ideas and construction of knowledge. So I was wondering whether you had any sort of particular capabilities that came up from your research as a sort of dominating or regulating other capabilities.
Yeah, of course, I think like there's certain kind of capabilities that are going to be more related, to the kind of practices, because, you know, like voice, participation, things like that. I think, you know, the space, the research space is perfect, you know, it's utterly really appropriate to develop those capabilities. But I think, you know, it's like, it's also important to look beyond those specific ones that we know more or less, you know, like can be expanded easily, you know, with the research process. But yeah, definitely, I think, yes, I have some capabilities that came strongly. I'm still analyzing the data, so I don't want to say much because it's not like a final outcome. But I will say, you know, for instance, in this case that is in South Africa, I found out that most of the students had this perception of togetherness coming from Ubuntu. And I was thinking like, well, you know, this is something that might be context specific, right? And maybe it's not about, I don't know, maybe like togetherness, but we can talk about a capability of Ubuntu, you know, but those are just, you know, ideas that is still going on because I'm busy with that. So yeah, so I think, yes, this kind of process, you know, are gonna help really quickly or easily, you know, to develop certain kind of capabilities related to offering a democratic space and agency center space. But we shouldn't miss the context, you know, to try to look for the surprises that we still have in the capability theoretical space. So.
Well, that's quite interesting, the Ubuntu concept, because in one of the workshops that we did in Kenya in June, that the same context come up from a lecturer as well, saying that they really value Ubuntu, the community learning, the community being together and constructing something, you know, like knowledge together. So I think that's really something local to, you know, to African continent.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So how we can look for specificities of different locations, you know, when we are researching with capabilities will be that, you know, so we maybe consider a capability of individualism in Western societies. I don't know. I'm thinking like, yeah, but yeah, it's an interesting point.
Well, that's all from me. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Melis, for a great question.
Thank you very much, Melis. Is there any other question from the rest of the group? Can I just ask you, what will you see as next steps for the diffusion of your proposal that I guess you really care about? And would you see any obstacles in terms of making different streams of literature really talking to each other and more as you're doing in being integrated one with each other?
Yeah, I think, you know, when I was conceptualizing this year, I always thought about it connected in networks, in the sense that DCR is not a practice, it's not a step 1, a step 2, a step 3, but it's more like incomplete guidance that, you know, as a researcher, we need to take and accommodate to the context we are acting or we are researching with or in. So definitely, you know, I would like to see next, you know, like other practitioners that will be interested to develop this kind of project and connect into networks so we can understand the difference among the different case studies and the potentialities, you know, within the academic context. Definitely for me, when I'm ready with my PhD, I would like to have another case study which in my opinion is going to be a little bit more different from this. It's going to be more related to what I was mentioning at the presentation, more in the De Sousa Santos approach of ecologies of knowledge, in the sense of combining the voiceless with social movement, with artists and academics, just for the sake of trying how the ecologies of knowledge can work better or worse to the one I've been implementing within the DCR process. About the difficulties, I think I'm terrified, because I think what I'm proposing is kind of not natural or different, really different from what we have been doing so far. So I think we're going to have difficulties within the academic field, to try to introduce a methodology which is not really well structured and measured in every aspect. So I think, actually that is so radical. For me, it's a sign that is actually what we need to try, in the sense that we're in the 21st century. We need to try new things. We know that, an hegemonic paradigm didn't help to transform this world. So we need to think otherwise in other spaces. So I think I see difficulties within the academic world. I think this has been happening for so many scholars working within participatory approaches, as you probably know, that made many scholars working in this field to go out of academia and try with NGOs work. Which might be also an interesting space to try DCR practices. So I think, that's the difficulties or the challenge that I see ahead from the academic perspective. But definitely, my view for the future is to try to create that network, of practitioners that are applying this in different contexts, in different times, and understanding that capabilities are also cultural related, and we can use them as a way to translation among different cultures.
Actually, I want to add one more thing here. So I completely agree about your, what you have identified, that's what we lack in academia, and we're usually mostly focusing on, individual capabilities, whereas we look into the more NGOs and practitioners who are just working with grassroots movements. Their focus is more about collective capabilities and how they can use those collective capabilities to bring a change. Whereas, just to reflect from my own project, I realized that what we have been doing within the university, within the higher education, is just like to focus on maybe individual capabilities and to, expect how that can bring some legislation, policy, or even, small initiative change within the university. This is also working for social justice, for social change, but I don't think it brings a greater voice like an NGO work. We should maybe just, be able to connect more those, approaches, or those, our work with the NGOs or the people who are in the, grassroots movements.
Yeah, definitely one of the main things about ecologies of knowledge is to provide that space, this is a space where experiential knowledge, traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge can come together also with academic knowledge. So I think this year is a great space to try this kind of things and see how, we can bring together this objective positionalities, from different part of societies to look and issue together and try to look for different solution, because definitely we know that the technocratic approach to resolve problems, it didn't work, or at least well, we can try something new to see how it works, I think. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, any further question or comment or clarification from the others? Okay, Carmen, if you agree, I'll propose to close the session now, and let me thank you again on behalf of the 3 thematic groups. And it has been a pleasure to host this webinar, to organize this webinar, and definitely your proposal at the conference when you said can I present my research in the webinar was perfect for these thematic groups, and so thank you again for having this idea to share your research with us. And as agreed, the presentation has been recorded, so if it is fine for you, I may ask you to share also your slides with us, and then most probably everything will be uploaded on the new HDCA website, the brand new website, so that also other people can access the presentation, and also yourself can disseminate it as it is part of your proposal. And thank you very much again, and thanks to everyone who participated in the webinar.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for everything.
Okay, thank you, and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't that easy as time?